Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to have you here on our webinar, Moving to Protecht.ERM. My name is Kelly Ngai and I'm Senior Product Manager here at Protecht. And I'm so pleased to be hosting two of our amazing customers today, Lucy Parr from Australia Post and Richard Paul Smart from the New Zealand Automobile Association. There's a mouthful for you. Like many of you on this webinar today, Lucy and Richard are risk and compliance professionals. So they're going to be sharing their insights and experience on choosing Protecht.ERM, implementing it and using it. Before we get stuck into the session today, I'll go over a few housekeeping items. The webinar will go for approximately 45 minutes and we will be leaving time for questions at the end. If you have a question, please pop it into the questions section in the Go-To panel. A recording of the webinar will be made available and there'll be a short feedback survey at the end of the webinar. We'd really appreciate you providing some feedback to us. For those of you who are new to Protecht, we are passionate about helping organisations lift their performance by really understanding their risk deeply so that they can monitor it and manage it. We're talking about Protecht.ERM today, which is our cloud-based enterprise risk management solution. Protecht also provides risk and advisory training and risk and compliance training and advisory services. And our customers include businesses, government organisations, and key regulators around the world. But to help you get that end user perspective on using Protecht.ERM, today I'm joined by two of our wonderful customers, Lucy Parr from Australia Post and Richard Paul Smart from the New Zealand Automobile Association, which I might refer to as the AA. Lucy, over to you first. Thanks for joining us today. Could you introduce yourself to us, tell us a little bit about Australia Post for some of our international audience members, and perhaps a bit about how your risk and compliance team is structured?
Thanks, Kelly. Yes, hi everybody. Lucy Parr here. Some of you might have heard of me as Lucy Gowlett. I've been in the risk compliance and assurance world for quite a long time, previously in finance and audit, so done the whole second and third line. I'm currently head of compliance frameworks and reporting for Australia Post, which is a massively complex business. It's quite challenging. We had a revenue of over 8.9 billion this past financial year, which is extraordinary. And we've got a workforce of over 36,000 team members plus an extended workforce. So it's a massive business and we don't just deliver letters and parcels. We've actually got digital services and very complex business. And we do some really odd things I'm still discovering after 3 years. We've actually got the biggest retail network in Australia. So we've got over 4,000 retail outlets through our post offices, but we support rural communities as well as the cities across Australia. Our risk and compliance team is probably about just over 50 people. That includes security that report into our CRO. But our group risk, which is our second line risk team, is quite small. So we've only got 9 group risk specialists, and then we've got a further 10 group compliance specialists. But then we've also got the line 1 risk specialists across the group, which is a massive group of people. And we've got an additional 10 compliance program managers that are embedded in different areas of the business. So it's quite a lot of people to try and get to all point in the right direction and doing the same thing. But it's been a fascinating journey learning about Australia Post.
Yep, great. Thanks very much for that, Lucy, and thank you for joining us today. Richard, your turn now. Thank you for joining us. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the New Zealand Automobile Association and how your team is structured? And I also know that you and your team won an award last week, and we'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, thank you, Lucy. Yep. So my name is Richard Smart. So I'm the head of operational risk for the New Zealand Automobile Association, otherwise known as the AA. So we're an incorporated society. We have a vast range of services. including free motoring advice, breakdown services, as we all know and love the AA for, vehicle repairs, driver licensing, driver training. We even have a fuel discount program called AA Smart Fuel. And we've recently implemented a home tradesperson assistance program. In terms of the award and I guess what we received it for, is partly due to the uplift in compliance and risk and compliance management over the last 3 years. And part of that was our implementation of Protecht to manage our incidents, issues, and audit findings. And so what we just won an award from the Financial Services Council, which is New Zealand's body for majority of insurers are part of it. And the AA, we sell life, health, travel and pet insurance, as well as general insurance. So we entered into the awards and we ended up winning the thing. And of course, our implementation of Protecht was included in that. So we're very pleased about that. Hey, look, our risk and compliance teams consist of our second line. So for us, it's myself and my team of 4, and we're just about to have a 5th come into our team. And we have, from the financial services division, we have a number of different first line risk and compliance professionals that work across the financial services area. And then of course we have a number of other business units within the AA, because we have a number of different areas that I just mentioned earlier. So it's quite diverse. And yeah, we're in the, so we implemented Protecht only a year ago now, or about 18 months ago. So we're still in the almost the beginning stages, and we're still learning a lot, and there's still new registers that we're looking to implement as well. So it's been a fantastic journey.
Great. Thanks for that, Richard, and congratulations to you and the team. That's wonderful, and so glad that Protecht can help support your risk framework. We're going to run a quick poll now so that we can have a better understanding of how the audience is currently managing risk. So for webinar attendees, you should see a poll. The question is, how are you currently managing your risk? Is it manually in spreadsheets, or are you using a system? So we'll give you a few seconds to answer that. Okay. And we'll close the poll now. Thank you very much for your responses there. It looks like the majority, around 53% of respondents, are manually managing risk in spreadsheets. And Richard, I understand that was the situation for the AA. So I might hand over to you first. Why did the AA make the decision to move from manual processing in spreadsheets to an ERM system?
Yeah, very good question. So the AA, we have a vast array of dissimilar products and services. I mentioned before, from sort of maps, accommodation guides, insurance and driver licensing. We really need to standardize the way the business is managing risk and compliance through a number of sort of dissimilar functions and business units. And what we were originally doing as a second line team when I first came into the AA was we wanted to start recording these things in somewhere. So we ended up putting them into an Excel spreadsheet, you know, just your standard information, incident name, incident number, incident description, risk assessment, etc. And as we started getting a little bit more sort of good at documenting these things, what we of course wanted to do is move to more of an ERM system. And I had experience implementing Protecht in a New Zealand bank, a medium-sized New Zealand bank. So it was always the direction I wanted to go in. So as part of the compliance development program, of course, we had to put together our business cases, which went through quite nicely. We had a look at a few other systems, and Protecht, you know, came out first out of all of those. Moving away from spreadsheets into more of an organized system has allowed for, of course, more transparency now, because you get different users within the business that can see a real-time showing of where the risks are, and also all the actions underway to address any incidents or issues or audit findings. So it's basically meant that there's a lot more visibility for all of the users of the Protecht system. And it also is just allowing our committees to get more exposure to, of course, all of the graphs and visuals that are available in Protecht around these things. So it has been like night and day, I suppose, going from spreadsheets to using a really best practice ERM system.
Yep, great. That's certainly something we hear from a lot of our customers, needing that holistic view of risk and all the data captured in one system. Lucy, the same question to you. What prompted Australia Post's decision to move from a prior ERM system actually to Protecht.ERM?
Yeah, I think when my boss, the GM of compliance, joined Australia Post, compliance was quite embedded in risk, but it wasn't very mature. So they wanted to strip it out and create more thorough and just better practice approach to documenting compliance. But one of the things that we found is our risk team, our audit team, and our newly created compliance second line teams, they were approaching line one quite often at different times, but asking for similar information. So audit would go in and go, what are your controls in this space and what are your controls in this area? Risk would go in and go, hey, have you got any controls to manage this risk? Compliance would start asking for evidence of control attestations and that sort of thing. So there were different groups of people across the whole group hammering the same people over and over again, asking the same questions. We also get audited a lot by different regulators. So for us, it was a sort of really simple, easy win for everybody scenario to get all the information in one place and to start sharing the information. The old system that the risk and the audit team were using was also very difficult to maintain. A lot of the drop-down menu options couldn't be updated, so they'd installed it quite a long time ago, but there was nobody that could actually make sure that the org structure was updated when things changed. It was so difficult for people to navigate their way around that they just, they would do the bare minimum and wouldn't see it as a benefit. So I think one of the biggest reasons for us in wanting to change was we need people to self-serve, especially in the front line, and we need all three teams in the assurance areas to share the same information and have access to it, which was very, very separate. We could also not get very good reports out of the old system. So a lot of the reporting was extracting data, putting it into PowerPoint or Excel, making it pretty and changing it and rewording stuff for board reporting and papers, which meant that your single source of truth was not what you had presented to committees and the board. So there was a disconnect there. So it was a really huge win for us getting all onto the same platform and onto the same system.
Great. Richard, you mentioned that some other vendors were considered. Why did you decide to go with Protecht?
Yeah, so when we're putting together our business case and our sort of analysis of the different vendors out there, our experience within our team, because we have everyone in my team comes from the banks in New Zealand and sort of the big four banks, and so we kind of have an understanding of what risk systems should be like in a really good practice, best practice kind of environment. So there are certain things that we were really interested in making sure that the system had. Things like the ability to test controls, for instance, was one. The design effectiveness, the operating effectiveness, making sure that you can rate your control tests, you can upload any testing documentation and evidence to show that you've tested key controls. And we also wanted the ability for it to include incidents and issue information, including all of those same things which I just mentioned, all of that detail, which is so important, particularly for regulated entities like the AA, because we're a licensed financial advice provider under the Financial Markets Authority. So we have a number of license conditions that we need to meet, and in order to ensure that we maintain our licensing compliance, we also needed to have a good practice or best practice system to be using to manage how we test our compliance assurance program, to making sure that we're meeting our Financial Markets Conduct Act requirements, which is essentially the financial services regulation here in New Zealand. So hey, look, we looked at a number of different systems. I think there were about 5 or 6 in total, and we did a cross analysis, and value for money was also really big on our agenda as well, because we wanted a number of different things out of the system, but also we were hoping that Protecht would be able to help us customize the system to meet the requirements of our operational risk management framework, which is quite a lengthy document, but it really goes into, you know, what our risk ratings are. It's got all of our likelihood and impact scales. It's got all of the information in there around how the organization first and second line is structured. So we really wanted to make sure that the system could kind of incorporate all of that framework into it and be able to work with Protecht to customize it in that way. And the good news is that the Protecht system ticked all of those boxes, and we were able to really work with our designated person from Protecht, who was just wonderful, by the way, and just had so much time for us, because that was another worry, is that we would kind of be left with this system and we'd have to figure out how to do it all ourselves, but that just wasn't the case. We had hours and hours and hours of time with Protecht, not only to customize the system, but also to train us up on how to use it, and then to be able to create our own tables and graphs and other, because you can actually use the system to change objects exactly and drop down fields and everything the way you want it to look. So I was really pleased that we could customize it ourselves as well. So yeah, I'm just really pleased with what we've received.
That's great. Yeah, that ability to customize without having to code, so really just configuring instead, is something we hear about quite often. And what really makes our heart sing is the great feedback for the implementation team as well, who are very experienced. Lucy, what was the experience for Australia Post? Why go with Protecht?
There's so much similarity between Rashad and I. I was also lucky enough to have implemented Protecht at a previous company in financial services world. So, you know, we definitely knew that system could help us with our AFSL license obligations and everything we had to do from that perspective. But being a non-financial services company, the money that we had available for an ERM system is not as much as you usually get in the financial services world. So cost was a big factor. We also looked at 12 different systems, because we had a couple of systems that had ERM functionality already installed in Australia Post, but those modules weren't being used. So for example, the ticketing system that our IT team used for everybody to log IT tickets and that sort of thing, you know, there were strong suggestions that we should use that system, but the ERM functionality on that was very expensive and proven to be very difficult to implement. So cost was a factor, but however, there's also, and from prior experience that I've had with some ERM systems, there's a lot of hidden costs after implementation with extended use. So Protecht scored really well on our evaluation process on, hey, we can use it for not just risks, controls, obligations, and the normal items. We've actually got 25 different registers at the moment in the tool that we're using. So we could extend the use of the tool to more than just the basics very easily and quite cost effectively. And then also the ability for line one to self-serve with reports and dashboards. So that was a huge sell for us. We needed it to be something where people could easily navigate without having to go through training sessions, to go, hey, where's my, you know, internal audit actions that are due next month, or when's my policy needing to be reviewed and updated, and what controls do my team look after, etc. So we needed to make sure we could set something up that would be user friendly from the front end, but also really help the line 2 and 3 teams with their day-to-day management of their work, which I knew Protecht could do, but I had to go through the process of justifying it to the governance group that ultimately made the decision. And we had a 150 line item comparison sort of evaluation sheet that we went through with the 12 systems, and then sort of narrowed it down to 3 and went with Protecht, which I'm super glad about. So yeah.
Great. And yeah, certainly the point you make about line 1 engagement is something that we hear time and again. It's so important, especially with an organisation the size of Australia Post, to make it easy for the end users. So yeah, that resonates with a lot of customers I've spoken with. Yep. And Lucy, staying with you, are there any particular problems that Protecht.ERM has helped you and your team solve, or particular benefits that you can share with the attendees on this webinar?
Well, one of the major problems that we had was the way compliance was being managed across the group. So we break our compliance obligations into buckets, if you could call it that. So we've got 18 different compliance programs, one of them being privacy, AML, chain of responsibilities, which is the big trucks that have to not speed and get maintained. So we've got 18 different categories of compliance, and each compliance program manager was doing something different. So just to try and get all our compliance program managers, some of them who are spread around the business, like in our safety area or our people area, our tax area, etc., just to get them all together and working in the same way was a huge benefit for us. Just sort of starting with the basics. Let's just get our obligations all documented in the same place and at the same granularity level. So, you know, you ask one compliance program manager, what are your obligations? And they can give you a list of 3,000 line items from major pieces of legislation, or you can get your privacy officer that says we've got 8, you know, requirements. So trying to get that balance and getting our compliance program managers to see what the other compliance program managers were doing so that they could align their approach in the same way. So just visibility of how other people were working was a huge one. And then also from a line 1 perspective, just reducing that noise from audit, compliance, risk, regulators, everybody asking people the same question over and over again. You know, where's your evidence that your team's completed its compliance training, and just being able to reduce the effort on uploading evidence and people being able to share that information has been a huge win. So the visibility of shared information, I think, is for us the biggest one. So you've got your audit team who are doing internal audits, and they're auditing the controls that are used for risk and obligations, and it's a huge win from that perspective.
Great. And Richard, any particular problems that Protecht.ERM has helped you and your team solve, benefits that you've noticed since the implementation?
I think it's very much the same as what Lucy was saying. The greatest benefit that we've had is that transparency, and really making sure that the first line, the second line, the third line can all see in one single place, in one single source of truth, where everything is at. You know, how many controls have been tested, where is all the evidence of those controls, testing, the incidents, you know, where are we at resolving anything that's happened, what's open, what's closed. You know, we've got dashboards in there showing all of these things as well, and of course the obligations register mapping back all of our all of our risks and controls back to our obligations register to show in one spot how we're tracking to make sure that we're meeting our legislative obligations and regulations. So I mean, that's been amazing for us. So yeah, transparency, really getting first line a little bit more accountable as well, because it's all in one spot. I think that we're able to also allocate action owners, action issue owners, incident owners, and get that right at the sort of GM levels, and then everyone can just see who's responsible for everything else. So when it comes to committee time, whether it's board reporting or it's the management committees, the risk committees, we can actually all, you know, instead of one person having one version of something, it's all in one place and everyone knows who's responsible for what. And hey, look, so we've implemented all of that, but then we went down the path of actually trying to, because it's the first time we've ever used an enterprise risk management system within the AA. My thing was to really have it proven within one business unit, which we were able to do within the financial services area. So instead of going for like a big bang approach across the whole organization all at once, we proved that it could work within the FS division. And now what we're doing is we're slowly, incrementally rolling out Protecht to the other business units within the AA, starting with the IT area. So yeah, it's even rolling it out to the next business unit. It's getting a lot of support, and they're already really using it well.
That's great to hear. And Richard, now is your time to geek out if you'd like. Are there any favorite features of the system that you and your team have? And if so, can you tell us a bit about how you use them?
Yeah, hey, look, there's a number of them. I think very basically, when a particular issue or an incident is kind of coming due on its due dates, the system can actually email out reminders to those action and issue owners just to make sure that they've done enough and they've updated the system with all of the work that they've been doing to resolve those areas. Another great thing is its ability to have just wonderful visuals. You know, I'm a very visual person. I like seeing all of my sort of issues in a graph and how they're tracking across the different months, as well as the incidents and how many controls have been tested versus, you know, how many are there in total across the year. So I can just export all of that information directly into my committee packs, which is saving a lot of time working in Excel. Hey, look, I think, I mean, other aspects of the system that we're building in at the moment, which we're really interested in procuring this year, we've had various demonstrations from the Protecht team, is the third-party risk management system, because what we're looking to achieve out of that is actually have one area where we can store all of our contracts, all our material contracts in a single system, and have all of that key metadata, including, you know, contract renewal date, any particular other dates that are coming up, reminding those individuals to actually do stuff, as well as checking out the SLAs within the contract and just confirming that, you know, the service level agreements are all up to date, and doing a review directly in the system. But then, of course, what we've also got at the AA is a supplier risk assessment process. So we risk assess all of our suppliers. A lot of that's in Excel at the moment. So we're looking to put that into Protecht now. And we're going to be able to send out questionnaires directly to suppliers so they can fill out all of these things and send various documents, which will transport itself automatically into the third-party risk management system. So it's going to save us a lot of time. So that's another massive benefit. And we're also just put in place the information security management system. So the IT team are really geeking out on that and fully using that to manage some of the IT security controls and various systems.
Wonderful. Lucy, how about you? Any favorite features?
I think Richard and I need to get together, because I'm going live with my third-party information security assessments before Christmas. But I'd love to see your IT controls. But yeah, sorry, what was the question again? That was the are the key features. So yeah, really difficult to identify one because it's got a lot of benefits. But for me, one of the biggest items that really helps everybody in the tool is our landing pages. So we've got quite a few different groups of users. So we've got our base user, which is our sort of middle management and above, sort of line 1 people. And we give them a lot of access to view stuff, but they can't edit everything, but they get their own landing page. So their landing page is customized for their business unit. So they can see all their actions, be it internal audit actions, risk actions, regulator, compliance actions. You know, they get a little pie chart of actions that they can then drill down into. They get all their own risks and control information, and any incidents if they are tagged on any incidents in their business unit. But then we also give them enterprise-wide information at the bottom. So we want everybody to understand the policies, the obligations, and the controls across the group. So just giving them a customized view of stuff they need to worry about, and then other useful stuff across the group, that ability to guide them into what they should be looking at, for us was a big win. We also use the My Task functionality a lot. So when people's names are against a record and it's got some sort of date or due date or reminder date attached to it, the My Task functionality comes into play. And a lot of our email notifications, you know, sort of push people towards the, hey, your controls need to be reviewed, or your risk is updated, or your risk acceptance is coming up for re-acceptance or change. So just that ability to change landing pages depending on the audience that's logging in. So our group risk team have got their own landing page. They don't care about the compliance stuff, you know, but they can access it if they want to. The audit team have got their own landing page, but they can all see what the general line 1 person's landing page looks like. So that to me is one of the huge benefits that I love about Protecht. The other one is the ease of setting things up. So just being able to set up, you know, a new contract register and you know, embedding that in the business. In other ERM systems that I've had experience with at other companies, you'd have to hire a whole lot of consultants and spend 6 months in workshops, you know, finalizing every field before you even start. Whereas in Protecht, I actually create little registers in a under construction area, test them out, and then roll them out really quickly. So the ability for us to set something up really quickly, roll it out, you know, and tweak it as we go, I think for me that's the biggest benefit, to sort of have a chat with the team who owns that area and going, hey, is it working for you after 3 months? And they go, oh, we're really missing this sort of thing, and we can just easily add a field. So it's really awesome from that perspective that you can just make on the fly changes and enhancements, being careful not to break all your dashboards like I did the other day, but but it's you know, pretty easy to fix things if things go wrong, and the support team has been great. So I enjoy that aspect of it.
Excellent. That's great to hear. I mean, yeah, we really strive to make the system actionable. So you have actionable insights, you know what the trends are, you know where the priority areas are to focus on, and yeah, easier for those frontline users and managers to get stuck straight into the work that needs to be done, get it done faster. That's what we're all about. That's great. What advice would you have for other risk and compliance professionals such as yourself, Lucy, who are considering moving to a system like Protecht.ERM?
Well, we took a slight different approach to Rashad with our rollout, and one of the things I can suggest that worked really well for us is to get the internal audit team on your side and to use them as the bait for line 1 to go into the tool. So I find line 1 traditionally know, understand, and respect the timing related to internal audit actions. Nobody wants to have an overdue internal audit action. They know how serious they are, as opposed to a compliance or a regulator. Well, regulator actions are taken pretty seriously, but a risk action, we didn't have the same urgency from line one about risk actions and compliance actions as we did about our internal audit actions. So we got our internal audit team on board and got their actions in the tool first, so that our line one people would go, oh, look, I can see my team's internal audit actions. Oh, that one's tracking really well. So it was a good draw card to get people into the tool to go in every month before the end of the month to go, hey, what's overdue, what's coming up for due. So rely on your internal audit team to help with the draw card to go in. We found that really useful. And then another piece of advice I find, the groups and permissions can get quite complicated. So I'm quite ruthless when it comes to people asking for different types of permissions for different groups of people, just to reduce the administration on the user access. And I know everybody's got different licensing deals or processes with Protecht, but we've got a limited license approach. But we don't have a lot of administration staff to manage who's got to have access to what and who needs to be allowed to see what. So we've got quite a few confidential registers in our tool. Our legal team use it for legal entities, our office holders and our terms of office registers. And those are very locked down and secure, and nobody can see them except for the legal team and the super user. But for the majority of users, we wanted just a really simple role structure so that we could drive the landing pages and the permissions without too much administration. So when somebody comes to you and says, oh, our little group of people need to be able to do X, Y, and Z, try and incorporate it into the broader permissions and roles, just to keep it simple and to keep your administration of users down. So 2 pieces of advice on that one.
Thank you, Lucy. I'm sure people on this webinar appreciate that. Richard, for you, any advice for people who are considering the move to a system?
Yeah, look, I mentioned it earlier. I think, proving it out within a particular business unit first, getting it right, making sure that those individuals know how to update the information with really good quality information and data, because as our risk professionals know, the way you kind of write an action, the way you write an incident or an issue has to be really spot on in order to drive the right sort of level of engagement with it and the right level of actions that come out of it. So I think the training up one business unit at a time was quite useful to us, and then moving on to other business units after that, incrementally getting the whole organization trained over a period of time is the way I think. Glad we went in that direction. The other one is, I think to Lucy's point as well, we've kept it super simple when it comes to user access permissions. We've got a group of super users and we have a group of users as well, and we've only got one systems administrator within the AA, so we don't want her to be sort of too busy doing that sort of stuff either. But we found that keeping those user access permissions super simple is working really well for us. I think I think other things is make full use of the Protecht team's expertise whilst they're in there to show you and train you up on the system, because they are experts on the system, and like they say, if you teach a man how to fish, they'll fish for the rest of their life, a man and a woman. But that's what Protecht will do for you. They will actually teach you how to set up various fields in Protecht, changing objects around, change reporting, creating new dashboards. So make full use of that time as well. And hey, look, I think, putting all of that together in combination with a fully functioning operational risk framework, that's quite important. So you've got all of your standard kind of risk and compliance measures, including even things like how do you rate your controls? Are they qualified, requires improvement, and effective? In which case they're going to need to customize the system in order to create those fields for you. So that's just one example, but it's good to get all of that right up front, as well as your your risk library. So a number of organizations have risk libraries already. We put one together prior to creating Protecht. All of those risk library fields can get transported into the system itself. So there's probably a little bit of sort of homework or kind of information you probably need to put together first before implementing the Protecht system, just so when you get the system, it's all up to date and it corresponds to your ORM, for your operational risk management framework.
Great. Well, thank you very much for sharing your experiences. I think that will help people in similar positions consider what they need out of an ERM system. We are getting close to time, but I did promise to leave time for a few questions to the panel. So I might have stopped sharing. One question we have is, how embedded were the risk management processes across the business aligned to the enterprise risk management framework prior to thinking about how a system could support a more effective and efficient approach? Lucy, I'm guessing the risk management processes were quite embedded at Australia Post.
There were pockets. So one of the problems with Australia Post is it is so diverse, and we've got massive business units that are very different. So we've got a digital team, and then we've got a group that don't even have computers because they just deliver letters on electric bikes. So you've got such a diverse group of people that you're dealing with, and trying to get consistency on risk management across the group was interesting. So it wasn't that embedded in all areas. We actually discovered teams doing risk management quite differently on different systems across the group while we went through this exercise. We also discovered 26 different ways that people could report something went wrong. So just the difference of how embedded it was in different areas was very different. So some areas it was well embedded, and other areas they didn't even know there was a group risk team. So there was quite a variety.
Right. And Richard, what was your experience like?
Yeah, quite similar to Lucy's, in the sense that the AA has a number of diverse business units. They all do a number of different things in terms of what products they sell and what services they provide to customers. And what we found really is that the AA, I mean, coming in afresh, we were a brand new risk team, and the AA is over 100 years old as an organization, and they were intuitively managing their own risks. And it was almost kind of a shame to sort of say, look guys, this is great the way you've been doing it, but actually we need a methodology to record exactly what you're doing, putting it into a system, and actually tracking how we're going. And I think that yeah, I think originally some business units within the AA were doing this very well. Others, I think that, say, they were intuitively managing these things, but actually now putting it into a system showed that visibility and sort of identified areas where we can improve even further, including doing that real kind of root cause analysis, where you can really record and group findings together and really identify root causes and solutions. So yeah, I think yeah, definitely been a big improvement to the way the AA functions overall, and just really pleased we went with Protecht to do that.
Great. Well, we are out of time now. Lucy and Richard, thank you so much for your insight into moving to Protecht.ERM. We really appreciate that, and Protecht looks forward to continuing to support Australia Post and the AA for many years into the future. A webinar recording will be made available shortly, and for the questions we didn't get to today, we will draft answers and make those available as well. Please do fill out the survey at the end of the session so that we can continue to improve. But that's all for today. Thanks very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the session. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.